I never expected my life to change so drastically in a matter of hours. One moment, I was happily married to Michael Weston, the love of my life, and the next, my world shattered. My name is Samantha Weston, and I am about to tell you the story of how everything I knew, everything I loved, was taken from me, and how a locked phone that Michael left behind became the key to the deepest betrayal I never saw coming. It was a Wednesday, the kind of day you think will be just like any other, but then the phone rang. I remember the way my heart skipped a beat when I saw Dr. Harding's name flash across the screen. He was Michael's doctor. Why was he calling me at 3:17 p.m.? I didn't even get a chance to pick up before the voicemail hit. I was already feeling uneasy. I listened to it, my pulse racing with each word. "Samantha, I'm so sorry to inform you. Michael had a sudden heart attack this afternoon. He didn't make it." I couldn't breathe, I couldn't think. My mind went blank. I dropped the phone almost as if it was burning me. Michael was gone. The man I thought would be with me forever was gone, just like that. Our house in Beverly Hills, seemed to close in around me. I stumbled, trying to hold onto something, anything. But there was nothing, not even the comfort of his presence. Days passed in a haze of funeral arrangements and well-meaning relatives who couldn't understand the weight of what I was going through. Everyone kept talking about how tragic it was, how sudden. But what they didn't know was that this tragedy wasn't just about losing my husband. It was about the empire Michael had built, a $70 million fortune that I had just lost. After the funeral, things started happening fast. The financial people began calling, his lawyers, even his business partners. But it was his family, the ones I had welcomed with open arms, that made me feel like I was being shoved aside. Luke Weston, Michael's younger brother, had suddenly taken over. The man who could barely hold down a job in his 20s suddenly was sitting in the corner office. He was always more interested in fast cars and women than business, but now, here he was, making decisions I had no say in. Then there was Tracy Weston, Michael's cousin. She had been more than a little flirtatious with my husband during family gatherings, but I brushed it off as her just being overly friendly. Apparently, it was more than just friendly. I wasn't completely naive, though. I knew the family dynamics, the undercurrents of jealousy that ran through Michael's relatives, but I never thought it would extend this far. One night, as I walked back into our bedroom, I noticed a strange tension in the air. Luke and Tracy were sitting at the dining table, papers scattered in front of them. Their voices dropped as I entered, but I heard enough to know something wasn't right. "I can't believe she hasn't figured it out yet." Luke's voice was smug, low. "Well, she'll get over it once we get the business sorted. She doesn't need to know everything, especially about Michael's side investments." "We'll handle it," Tracy replied. I froze in place. Side investments? Michael had never mentioned anything like that to me. A surge of panic washed over me. Why was I being kept in the dark? Had Michael really kept secrets from me, even in death? The next morning, I walked into the office, our office, the one Michael and I had built together. Everything felt wrong. The pictures on the walls, his chair at the desk, it felt empty, as if his presence was just a ghost. It was then I noticed it. A small, unassuming phone sitting on the desk. Michael's phone. It had been left behind. Why hadn't anyone taken it? Was it because it was of no importance, or was it something more? The phone was locked, of course. Michael was always meticulous about security, but something told me it was important. I had to unlock it. I tried several times, tapping on the screen, hopping to find some kind of clue, but it remained locked. I felt a deep frustration growing within me. This phone, left behind by the man I loved, was now my last connection to him. Maybe it was a clue, a way to figure out what was really happening behind the scenes, but I needed to unlock it, and fast. For the next few days, I barely slept. I called a few tech-savvy friends, tried everything I could think of, nothing worked. But then it came to me. A trick Michael had once shown me, a hidden code buried deep within the phone's settings. I had never paid much attention, but now, in my desperation, I remembered. I tried again. This time, I focused harder. The numbers, the codes, it was all a game to Michael, a way to protect things that were meant only for him. And yet, here I was trying to break through. Bingo, the screen flashed and there it was, the home screen. And inside, waiting for me, was everything I had been searching for. There were texts, emails, photos, but what caught my eye was something much more sinister. Bank records. A set of emails between Michael and a mysterious businessman. But it wasn't just any businessman. It was someone I recognized, James Edwards, a name I had heard too often when Michael and I had been discussing potential investments. But why was he listed here, in these shady transactions? My heart began to race. I wasn't sure what I was seeing, but the pieces were falling into place. Michael had been hiding things from me: money, assets, business deals, and what appeared to be bribes. I thought back to the strange conversation I overheard with Luke and Tracy. Could it be? Could they have been involved in this? The more I scrolled, the more I realized that everything I had been told about Michael, about our marriage, was a lie. The empire we had built together wasn't what I thought it was. Michael hadn't left me an empire. He had left me a mess. But then came the biggest shock, a file labeled Revenge. I clicked it without thinking. What I found inside was worse than I could have imagined. A series of encrypted documents, each one more damning than the last. These weren't just financial papers, they were personal. The file detailed plans that Michael had made to protect me, yes, but also plans that involved taking down his own family. Plans to reclaim the empire from Luke and Tracy, to take back what was stolen, and to destroy those who had manipulated him. And most chillingly, it seemed like he had been preparing me for this moment, for the day I would seek revenge. But as I read through the file, I realized something that made my blood run cold. Michael hadn't just left me a phone, he had left me a weapon, and the more I uncovered, the clearer it became. My grief was turning into something else entirely, something darker, something more dangerous. I felt the anger rise in me, burning hot and sharp. I had to take back what was mine, the empire, my husband's legacy, and most importantly, my revenge. I paused for a moment, thinking. If Michael could do it, so could I. I would use everything he left me, the secrets, the lies, the betrayals, to reclaim what was rightfully mine. But first, I needed answers. I needed to confront Luke and Tracy, and when I did, there would be no turning back. I've never felt a sense of purpose like this before. The grief was still there, lurking beneath it all. But the fire of revenge, that was burning brighter than anything I had ever known. What do you think? Am I doing the right thing? If you were in my shoes, what would you do? Let me know in the comments. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel, because this is just the beginning. Trust me, things are about to get a whole lot darker. I thought I knew my husband, Michael Weston, the man who built an empire from nothing. I had always believed our life was a partnership. But now everything felt like a lie. The phone had opened a door I couldn't close. Michael's secrets, the betrayal. It was all there, staring back at me, and I couldn't unsee it. What had been built together now felt like it was crumbling in my hands. But that wasn't even the worst of it. The worst was the feeling of losing everything. The empire that Michael had spent his life building, the one he promised would be my legacy too, wasn't mine anymore. And those who took it, his own family. His brother, Luke Weston, and his cousin, Tracy Weston, had conspired to steal it all away from me. I wasn't just grieving Michael's death anymore. No, I was grieving the future I thought we had built. The plans, the house, the wealth, the security, all of it now belonged to people I didn't even trust. My own family, the same family that had never had my back. As the days dragged on, the truth began to set in. The phone, Michael's final gift, had opened my eyes to more than I was prepared for. The evidence was right in front of me. The stolen millions, the fake accounts, and the transactions that Luke had been involved in. But it was worse than that. I had assumed everything was fine between me and Michael. We didn't keep secrets. We were partners in everything. But looking back now, the cracks in our relationship had always been there. Small things I had ignored, convinced myself they were nothing. When Michael passed, everything seemed to fall apart too quickly. The funeral arrangements, the calls from the lawyer, the well-wishers who pretended to care, the relatives who showed up for the inheritance, not the man they'd all claimed to love. No one could be trusted. No one except Michael. But even then, he was gone, and in his absence, it was too easy for the vultures to circle. I had started to investigate the company files, hoping to at least preserve his legacy. What I found only deepened the pit in my stomach. Luke wasn't just taking control of the finances. He was actively erasing Michael from the company records. It was like a ghost had swept through the files, leaving no trace of Michael's hand in anything. Everything was being altered, reallocated, and manipulated. I stormed into the office one afternoon, determined to confront Luke. I wasn't the type of woman to sit idly by and let my family walk all over me. I had a right to know what was going on, especially when it came to my future. I found Luke sitting at Michael's desk, his feet propped up on the leather chair, a glass of whiskey in hand. The sight of him, relaxed, smug, like he owned the world, made my blood boil. It was bad enough he was taking over everything, but this was a slap in the face. "Luke, we need to talk," I said, my voice icy but controlled. The last thing I wanted was to lose my composure. Luke didn't even look up from his drink. "What's there to talk about, Sam? You're just upset, and we all know it. Michael's gone, and someone's got to run the company." I could feel the anger bubbling up inside me. "Someone, you mean you?" I took a step forward, glaring at him. "You've been siphoning money out of the company. You've been covering up the financial records. You've been stealing from me." Luke finally looked up, his eyes narrowing. He set the glass down, his casual demeanor slipping for the first time since I walked in. "You have no idea what you're talking about," he sneered. "The company's in debt, Sam. Michael's investments were a disaster. Don't pretend like you understand business." The words hit me like a slap. My hands trembled at my sides, but I held my ground. "Don't lie to me. Michael kept me in the dark, but I know what's going on now. You've been moving money around, and you're not going to get away with it." I leaned in closer, lowering my voice. "I'll expose you. You're not the man Michael thought you were. You're just a fraud." Luke's face darkened, and for a moment I saw something in his eyes, a flicker of fear. But then, just as quickly, it was gone. He stood up, his face inches from mine. "You think you can take me down, Sam? You think you can control what's already mine?" His voice was low, dangerous. I took a step back, but I didn't let him intimidate me. "You'll regret this." He scoffed. "You're nothing without Michael's money. You think anyone will believe you." That's when the truth hit me. I wasn't just fighting for money or for control of the company. I was fighting for my dignity, for the future Michael promised me. And now Luke and Tracy wanted to take that away. But I wasn't going down without a fight. As I left the office that day, a feeling of determination swept over me. This wasn't over. It was just beginning. I wasn't going to let my husband's legacy die at the hands of greedy relatives. Michael had trusted me with his empire, and I would not let it fall into the wrong hands. But I knew it wasn't going to be easy. The more I dug into the company's records, the more I realized just how deep the betrayal ran. Tracy, too, had been involved in this web of lies and manipulation. There were conversations in Michael's phone, messages from Tracy, indicating that she knew far more about the finances than I ever realized. She'd been secretly working with Luke to take control. What hurt the most was how easily they'd turned on me. They were my family. Tracy was like a sister to me. And Luke, he was Michael's brother. Family meant loyalty, didn't it? At least that's what I thought. But loyalty didn't mean a thing to them. All they cared about was power and money. The anger inside me grew stronger every day. I had to stop them. I had to take back what was mine. But how? I knew I couldn't do it alone. I needed help. I needed someone on the inside, someone who could get me the answers I needed. That's when I remembered John Mason. John had been one of Michael's oldest friends, a business associate from way back. He was rough around the edges, but he knew the ins and outs of Michael's empire better than anyone. If anyone could help me take back control, it was him. But trusting John was risky. He had his own reputation. And I wasn't sure he could be trusted, but I was running out of options. I called him that night, and the sound of his voice brought a small measure of relief. "John, I need your help," I said. "It's bad. They're trying to steal everything." There was a pause on the other end of the line. Then, in a quiet voice, he replied, I knew it was only a matter of time before someone went after the empire, but we're going to need more than just a few documents to take them down. It's gonna be messy. I don't care how messy it gets. I want my life back. John's voice hardened. We'll do it, but we need to be smart. They've got a lot of power behind them. One wrong move and it's over. The plan was set in motion, and from that moment on, I knew there was no going back. The line between right and wrong had blurred, and as much as I hated to admit it, I was willing to fight dirty. If that was what it took to take back what was mine, then that's what I would do. But I had to be careful. Luke and Tracy weren't just after the money, they were after my freedom, and I wasn't about to let them win. I thought I knew my husband, Michael Weston, the man I married, the man who promised me a future, who vowed that no matter what, we would always have each other. But in the silence of his death, I began to see how wrong I was. Michael wasn't the man I thought he was, and neither were the people I trusted most. It had been a week since I first discovered the betrayal, the day I unlocked the phone, and in that week, everything had changed. I could feel it, deep in my bones, that my life would never be the same again. Michael's secrets weren't just buried in his business dealings. They were hidden in his personal life. In the messages, the files, the contacts he kept locked away for reasons I was only beginning to understand. I still remember the night I unlocked his phone. I had worked for hours, getting nowhere, exhausted, frustrated. But then, in the dead of night, when I was on the edge of giving up, it happened. It clicked. The password I'd thought was impossible to crack suddenly came to me. It wasn't luck. It was a detail, something small, but something I remembered him mentioning once. The moment I typed in the code and the screen lit up, I held my breath. The phone, his phone, was no longer just an object. It was my connection to the truth, and in that moment it became my weapon. But what I found inside, well, it wasn't just unsettling, it was devastating. The first thing I noticed was the flood of emails, most of them from James Edwards, that name I had seen in the records, in the shady investments I had discovered. I thought Michael's dealings with Edwards had been business as usual, but what I found now told a very different story. These weren't business discussions, they were something far darker. The subject lines alone made my stomach turn. Final transaction details, meet at the usual place. The money is in, now the next phase begins. I scrolled through, desperate to make sense of it all. But the further I went, the deeper the rabbit hole seemed to get. Michael had been involved in something that went far beyond simple investments. These deals were connected to money laundering, hidden offshore accounts, shell companies in places I couldn't pronounce, and stacks of cash moving through accounts that I had no idea existed. But it wasn't just the financial corruption that shocked me. There were personal messages between Michael and someone I never expected, Tracy Weston, my own cousin-in-law, my sister in everything but blood. But the things they were saying to each other, the things I read on that screen made my heart freeze. The text exchanges were brief, but they were damning. Michael, it's done. Luke has no idea about the changes I've made. I've moved most of the assets into the new accounts. You're going to be set for life. Tracy, good, but we need to be careful. The family won't understand. And Samantha, what about her? She'll fight us. She always does. Michael, I know, but it's too late. There's no turning back now. When I'm gone, the money will be ours. She won't get a dime. My world crumbled. All this time, I had believed Michael's family was just that, a family. Loyal, trustworthy people who cared, but they were vultures. They had been planning this for years, waiting for the right moment to take it all. And that moment came with my husband's death. I sat there for hours, reading through every message, every document, each more chilling than the last. I couldn't believe it. How had Michael kept this from me? How had he kept this secret in his heart, knowing all along that his own family was scheming behind my back? But the phone didn't just tell me about Michael's plans. It revealed something even more sinister, something I wasn't ready for. Buried in the files was a recording, a voicemail that Michael had saved for me. The timestamp read just 2 days before he passed. It was the last message he left. My heart raced as I pressed play. Samantha, Michael's voice came through the speaker, and for a moment it felt like he was there with me again. but what he said next shattered everything I thought I knew about our life together. "I know you're going to find this eventually, and I'm sorry. I didn't want it to be like this, but you deserve the truth. Tracy's been involved, she and Luke are working together. They've been planning this for months. They're going to take the empire and they'll stop at nothing to do it. Please be careful." I wish I could have told you sooner. I don't have much time left. There's a file hidden in the bank account. Use it to expose them. Do it for me, for our future. The message ended abruptly. There was no "I love you," no comforting words, just betrayal. The man I loved, the man I trusted, had known about this all along, and now he was gone. I felt a deep, nauseating anger build inside me, but there was also something else, a fierce determination. Michael had left me the key to everything. It wasn't just about the money anymore. It was about justice. It was about taking back what was mine and showing his family that they couldn't get away with this. The phone had revealed the truth, but it had also shown me a path forward. But as I started to piece everything together, something unexpected happened. I wasn't alone. Just as I was preparing to make my next move, I got a call. It was from John Mason, the old business partner of Michael's. I hadn't spoken to him in years, but he was someone I knew I could trust, someone who could help me make sense of everything. "Sam, I know what's going on. I've been watching the whole thing unfold. Michael's been planning this for a while. You're not the only one who's been kept in the dark. I can help you, but you have to be careful. They're going to come after you. They won't stop until they've taken everything." His words sent a shiver down my spine. But I wasn't afraid anymore. I had to act fast. If I didn't, Luke and Tracy would succeed in taking everything from me, everything Michael had worked for, and I couldn't let that happen. John told me he had a plan. It involved using the evidence I had from Michael's phone, the secret bank accounts, the hidden investments, the offshore companies, to expose Luke and Tracy's crimes. But there was one catch. If we were going to do this, we had to move quickly. The longer we waited, the more time they had to cover their tracks. The plan was set. The game was on. But I had one final question. Why hadn't Michael told me? Why hadn't he trusted me with the truth before it was too late? The answer, as I would soon learn, would change everything. If only I had known sooner. If only Michael had trusted me enough to tell me the whole truth before it was too late. But now, as I stand on the edge of what could be my greatest victory or my most dangerous downfall, I have no choice but to play the game. The phone had opened my eyes to everything I had been blind to for so long. Michael's empire, his legacy, wasn't what I thought it was. It wasn't just the wealth or the business ventures. It wasn't just about the money. It was about the secrets. And the more I uncovered, the more I realized I didn't know the man I had loved for over a decade. The phone was my key to everything, but it wasn't the only tool I had. I had John Mason on my side now. He wasn't just an old business partner of Michael's. He was the one person who could help me expose the corruption and the lies. But even with his help, I had to move cautiously. Luke and Tracy were dangerous. They were smart, ruthless. And now they had everything to lose. I couldn't afford to make a mistake. As I sat in the quiet of my bedroom, replaying Michael's last message in my head, the weight of everything seemed to crush me. My mind raced with questions. Why had he kept all of this from me? I had always been a partner to him, not just in the business, but in life. But now, everything felt like a betrayal. The empire I thought I would inherit, the business that was supposed to be my future, it was all a lie. I stood up, my fingers trembling as I reached for the phone. The text from John still glowed on the screen. "We need to meet. There's more to this than just money. We're running out of time." I had to meet him, but I couldn't just walk into the lion's den without a plan. I needed more information, more answers. So I decided to pay a visit to Luke's office. It was risky, foolish even, but I had nothing to lose anymore. I told myself I wasn't going to confront him just yet, not directly. No, I needed to gather more intel. I needed to know what he was doing, what Tracy was doing. They had no idea I was onto them, and I planned to keep it that way for as long as I could. The office building was quiet when I arrived, the cold hum of fluorescent lights echoing in the empty halls. I walked past the receptionist, flashing a smile that I hoped was convincing enough to hide the anxiety gnawing at my stomach. Luke's office was on the top floor, his kingdom. I was careful, stealthy. As I approached the door, I felt my heartbeat quicken, but I wasn't afraid. I couldn't afford to be afraid anymore. I had to confront the man who had taken everything from me, and I had to do it on my terms. The door was ajar. I peered inside, and there he was sitting behind Michael's desk, his legs sprawled out in front of him, sipping a glass of whiskey. Luke Weston, the man who thought he had won. The man who thought I was nothing without the empire Michael had built. I held my breath as I watched him, trying to steady the rush of anger that threatened to bubble up. He didn't know I was here. He didn't know I had everything I needed to bring him down. I stepped back from the door, careful not to make a sound. My plan wasn't to confront him just yet. I needed to get into his system, his files. I needed access to the truth, to the things he was trying to hide. I turned to the side of the building and walked toward the server room. I knew exactly where it was. It had been set up by Michael, designed to protect the Empire's most sensitive files. Luke wouldn't even think to look there. I made my way down the narrow hall, heart pounding in my chest. When I reached the door, I paused. No one was around. I slipped inside and began typing in the code Michael had once given me, a code only he and I knew. It was a series of numbers and letters, each one more intricate than the last. But it worked. The server hummed to life, and I accessed the files. Michael's personal records, his last will, his bank accounts, everything he had kept hidden. The more I opened, the clearer it became that Michael had been planning for this. He knew something would happen. And that's when I saw it, the file that would change everything. The file was labeled Plan B. I clicked on it, knowing that whatever was inside would be the key to my revenge. The contents were a mix of financial documents, emails, and contracts. But the final part of the file caught my eye, a letter from Michael to me. I opened it with trembling hands. It was dated just a week before his death. Samantha, by the time you read this, I'll be gone. I know you'll have questions. The empire, the money, the secrets. I've left everything for you. But I need you to know something before you act. Luke and Tracy are going to come for you. They'll stop at nothing to take what's yours, to take what's mine. But they don't know what I've planned. I've set things up so that when the time comes, you'll be able to take back control. The plan is in motion, and it's yours. Don't trust anyone, not even John. But you already know that, don't you? Everything I did for you. For us. I'm sorry I couldn't be there to protect you, but I believe in you, Sam. You're stronger than you think. Michael. I felt my legs give way as I read his words. John, could it be? Was Michael warning me not to trust the one person who had offered to help me? I slammed the laptop shut, my breath coming in ragged gasps. Was I being played? Had I been set up from the start? I couldn't trust anyone. Not Luke, not Tracy, and now not even John Mason. The world felt like it was closing in on me. Every step I took felt more dangerous than the last. I wasn't just fighting for money. I was fighting for survival. As I stumbled out of the server room, a sudden voice stopped me cold. Looking for something. I turned slowly. Tracy. She was standing in the doorway, her eyes narrow with that same smug look I had come to hate. She must have known what I was doing. What are you doing here, Tracy? I asked, trying to steady my voice. But inside, I felt the walls closing in. You really think you can take everything, don't you, Sam? She sneered. You've always thought you were the smart one, the one who could keep up with the big boys. But you're in way over your head. I took a step back, my pulse hammering. I wasn't sure how much she knew. I wasn't sure if I could trust the plan Michael had left behind. But I knew one thing for sure, I had to act. And as Tracy moved closer, a thought flashed through my mind. This was it. This was the moment where everything changed. I'm not afraid of you, Tracy, I said, my voice shaking but steady. This ends now. I'm taking what's mine. Her smile faltered for a moment, just long enough for me to see the fear in her eyes. But she recovered quickly, masking it with that same icy demeanor. Good luck with that, she muttered, turning away. I had no idea what was coming next, but I wasn't backing down. I had the truth now, and with it, I was going to make them pay. I had been through the storm, but now I was standing on the edge of something darker than I could have ever imagined. The phone Michael left behind had unlocked his secrets, our secrets, but it had also opened a door I wasn't ready to walk through. I had always thought that Michael Weston was my partner in everything, the man I loved, the man I built my life with, but the more I uncovered from his phone, the more I realized how little I knew. His dealings, the lies he told, and the betrayals that ran deeper than I ever imagined. And as if that wasn't enough, now I was tangled in a web of deceit that threatened to pull me under. I sat in my car, the engine idling in the dimly lit parking lot of a small cafe on the outskirts of Beverly Hills. The shadows around me seemed to echo the darkness in my heart. The only light came from the neon signs that flickered in the distance. And there, under the harsh glow, I was about to meet John Mason, the man who claimed to know more than anyone else about Michael's hidden business and the empire that was slipping through my fingers. It wasn't the first time I'd heard from John. He had called me after I discovered Michael's hidden file, the one that revealed the truth about Luke and Tracy's involvement in everything. But John had been cryptic, too cryptic. Now, as I waited for him, I could feel the weight of everything pressing down on me. I wasn't just facing a battle with Luke and Tracy anymore. I was facing a war, and I needed to know if John was an ally or just another part of the scheme. The phone buzzed in my hand. John Mason, the name flashing on the screen, made my stomach churn. I answered it quickly. "Sam," his voice came through, low and steady. "You here?" "Yeah," I replied, trying to keep my voice even. "I'm in the car, just waiting." "Good," he said. "I'll be there in a minute. But listen, this isn't just about Luke and Tracy anymore. This goes deeper. I've been talking to some people who knew Michael better than anyone. People you wouldn't expect. I've got something you need to see." I felt a knot tighten in my stomach. What could John possibly have that would change everything? I already had the files. I already knew about the offshore accounts, the bribes, the fake investments. What could be worse than that? The sound of a door opening snapped me out of my thoughts. I looked up to see John Mason walking toward my car. His broad shoulders and worn jeans gave him the look of someone who'd been through more than his fair share of battles. His weathered face betrayed nothing of the emotions running beneath the surface, but I knew he knew more than he was letting on. I rolled down the window as he approached. "John, what's going on?" I asked, trying to keep the urgency out of my voice. He slid into the passenger seat without a word, the faint scent of cigar smoke still lingering around him. For a moment, neither of us spoke. The silence between us was thick, almost suffocating. Then John leaned forward, his face tense. "They're onto you," he said quietly. "Luke and Tracy, they've figured out you're getting closer to the truth. And trust me, they're going to stop at nothing to keep you from exposing them." I swallowed hard, the words sinking into my bones. "What are you saying?" John paused, his jaw clenched as he looked out the window, avoiding my gaze. "You're in danger, Sam, and I don't just mean the legal stuff. If you keep pushing them, they won't just ruin you. They'll destroy everything you care about. They're playing a bigger game than you realize." I could feel my heart racing, my breath catching in my chest. "So what? You're telling me to back off. Just let them have everything." John's eyes finally met mine, his expression hard. "No, what I'm telling you is that there's a way to beat them, but it's going to take everything you've got. And more. The truth isn't just buried in the files you found. There's something much bigger behind all of this, something you can't even begin to imagine." I leaned back in my seat, my mind racing. "What do you mean?" I asked, barely above a whisper. John hesitated before reaching into his jacket pocket and pulling out a small envelope. He handed it to me, his hands steady but his eyes darting to the rearview mirror, like he was checking for anyone watching. I opened the envelope slowly, my fingers trembling with anticipation. Inside was a photograph, a picture of Michael, my Michael, standing in front of a building I didn't recognize. Behind him were two men, both wearing dark suits. They were older, their faces unfamiliar, but the way they stood next to Michael sent a chill through my spine. The image had been taken just months before his death. I recognized the building, a bank, not just any bank, but a place I knew was connected to some of Michael's most secretive dealings. "What is this?" I asked, my voice breaking as I looked at John. "What does this mean?" "It's more than just a photo," John said slowly. "The men in the picture, they were involved in something much bigger. Michael got tangled up in it, but he didn't tell you everything. He couldn't. Not with how deep the web went. You're not just fighting Luke and Tracy anymore. You're up against an entire network, one that wants to keep everything hidden." I felt the weight of his words crash over me like a tidal wave. Michael hadn't just been hiding business dealings. He'd been entangled in something far more dangerous. "You need to be careful, Sam," John continued. "If you push them too hard, you might just end up in a fight you can't win. This isn't just about money. This is about power, power they'll kill for." I shook my head, struggling to process everything. Could this be real? Could my husband's death be connected to something bigger? Something that had been waiting for me all along? "You have to make a choice," John's voice broke through my thoughts. "Either you keep digging and you expose everything, risking your life, your future, or you back off, let it all go. It's not a choice anyone can make lightly." I felt the cold sting of reality sink in. I couldn't just walk away. Not after everything I had uncovered. But could I really keep going? Could I really expose the truth and face the consequences? I looked out the windshield, the weight of the decision heavy in my chest. What would Michael want me to do? John seemed to sense my hesitation, and he leaned forward, placing a hand on my shoulder. "You're stronger than you think, Sam. Don't let them win." I looked at him, then at the photo again, the truth starting to settle in. The deeper I dug, the more dangerous it became. But I couldn't stop now. Not after everything I had learned. I couldn't just walk away from Michael's legacy. I couldn't let Luke and Tracy take everything from me. The only question left was whether I had enough power to bring them down. I could feel the storm brewing. The calm before it felt like a trap, a false sense of security. But I wasn't naive anymore. I knew what was coming, and I knew I had to be ready for whatever Luke and Tracy threw at me next. I hadn't slept in days. My mind raced constantly, replaying the conversation with John Mason, the secrets he'd shared, and the terrifying realization that Michael's death wasn't just a heart attack. It was the culmination of a dangerous game, one that I was now part of. Luke and Tracy weren't just after my money, they were after control. They'd taken everything they could from me, but they hadn't counted on me fighting back. I sat at Michael's desk late one night, the dim light from the desk lamp casting shadows across the room. The papers, the files, the documents, it was all beginning to make sense. Michael had known. He had always known that one day I would have to take the reins of the empire. But he had also known that someone close to him, would try to take it all away. And now it was up to me to stop them. The phone that had unlocked so many of Michael's secrets was no longer just a lifeline. It was my weapon. The encrypted files, the emails, the messages, everything Michael had left me was a trail of breadcrumbs leading me deeper into a labyrinth of betrayal. Luke and Tracy were at the center of it all, and I had to follow the trail to the end. But every move I made felt like I was walking on a tightrope, one wrong step, and I would fall into the abyss. But I had to keep moving. There was no turning back now. The next morning, I met John again, this time in a quiet cafe away from prying eyes. As I walked in, I saw him sitting at a corner table, his posture tense, his eyes scanning the room. When he saw me, he stood up, his face hardening as though he could sense my frustration. "I can feel it, John," I said, taking a seat. "Every step I take, they're getting closer. Luke and Tracy, they know I'm onto them. They're watching me." John's expression softened for a moment, but only for a split second. "You're right. They're getting more dangerous. The longer you stay in this, the more they'll try to eliminate you. You have to be careful, Sam. Trust no one, not even me." I nodded, understanding the gravity of his words. He was right. I couldn't afford to trust anyone. Not even John Mason, despite the fact that he was my ally. But the truth was, I didn't have many options left. I had to rely on the people who knew the ins and outs of Michael's business. And John, for all his faults, was the only one who could help me now. "We're running out of time," I said, my voice low, my heart pounding in my chest. "Luke and Tracy, they're getting more aggressive, I can feel it. They won't let me take back what's mine, not without a fight. John leaned in closer, his voice dropping to a whisper. That's the problem, Sam. They've been planning this for years. They've been taking advantage of Michael's trust. But we can't just expose them with the files. It's not enough anymore. Then what do we do? I asked, panic creeping into my voice. We can't just sit here and let them take everything. We hit them where it hurts, John replied, his voice steady, his eyes never leaving mine. We expose their lies. We take control of the business and we make them regret ever messing with you. I sat back, the weight of his words sinking in. Expose them, it was the only option. But how? I thought back to everything Michael had left behind. The company, the estate, the assets. Everything was tainted by the lies and deceit Luke and Tracy had created. The more I thought about it, the more determined I became. This wasn't just about money. It was about honor, about showing Luke and Tracy that they couldn't take everything I had worked for, that they couldn't destroy my husband's legacy, Michael's legacy. I can't do this alone, I said, the realization dawning on me. I need to bring in people who understand this business, people who will help me fight back. John nodded slowly. I've got a few contacts, people who can help, but we need to act fast. The longer we wait, the more they'll erase. We can't let them take control of the company. My heart raced. This was it. The moment I had been preparing for. I was about to take back control. I was about to fight back. But the question that haunted me was this. Was I ready for what came next? I'll make the call, John said, standing up from the table. You're going to need backup, but remember, once you go down this road, there's no going back. Are you sure you want to do this? I looked up at him, my eyes steady. I wasn't just sure. I was more certain than I had ever been in my life. This wasn't just about me anymore. This was about everything Michael and I had worked for. This was about reclaiming what was mine. I'm ready, I said, my voice cold with determination. Let's end this. The next few days were a blur of meetings, phone calls, and strategy. John's contacts were invaluable, but the more we uncovered, the darker the truth became. Luke and Tracy were not only involved in illegal activities, they were infiltrating the entire company, turning everything Michael had built into their personal empire. They were dismantling his legacy piece by piece, and they weren't going to stop until they had it all. I couldn't allow that to happen. I couldn't let them win. Michael had trusted me with his empire, and now it was my turn to protect it. But as I worked tirelessly, pulling together the pieces of Michael's empire, something unexpected happened. Luke made his move. I didn't see it coming, not at first, but then it all fell into place. It started with a call, a threat, but it wasn't from Luke directly. It was from his lawyer. The message was clear. Samantha, drop your claims or face serious consequences. I couldn't believe it. Luke was using the legal system against me. He was playing dirty, and he had the resources to make my life a living nightmare. I felt the walls closing in, but I wasn't about to back down. I had to strike first. The evidence I had gathered, the files, the secret accounts, everything was ready to be exposed. I was going to use the system against him. But I needed more than just the truth. I needed leverage. And that's when I realized I had a secret of my own. There comes a point in every battle when you realize the stakes are higher than you ever imagined. You can either stand your ground or let everything slip away. And for me, that point had come. This wasn't just about money anymore. It wasn't just about Michael's empire. It was about justice, about fighting for everything that had been stolen from me. I sat in the small, dimly lit office, my hands shaking as I reviewed the evidence. The files, the accounts, the photos, I had it all. The truth was finally out in the open, and yet it felt like nothing had changed. Luke and Tracy were still at the helm of the company, still using their power to manipulate and control everything that should have been mine. They had tried to erase Michael from the records, but I had brought the truth to light. I had uncovered every shady deal, every hidden account, every deceitful action they had ever taken. But the more I learned, the more it became clear. This wasn't just a family dispute. It was a war. A battle for control over everything Michael had built, and the stakes had never been higher. The phone buzzed on the desk, pulling me from my thoughts. I grabbed it, my heart pounding as I saw the caller ID, John Mason. I hadn't heard from him in days, and something told me this call wasn't going to be good news. "John," I answered, my voice tight. "What's going on?" "You're running out of time." John's voice was low, urgent. "Luke's got the leverage now. He's pulling strings behind the scenes. He's going to make his move soon. I don't think we can hold him off much longer." My heart sank. I had known the risk. I had known that the deeper I dug, the more dangerous it would get. But now I could feel the walls closing in. I couldn't stop now. Not after everything I'd uncovered, not when I was this close to the finish line. "What do you mean, he's going to make his move?" I demanded, trying to steady my breathing. "What is he planning?" "I don't know yet, but I've been getting whispers from some of my sources. Luke is going to try to push you out. He's already got some of the board members on his side, and if you're not careful, he'll use them to take control for good." A rush of anger surged through me. Luke was going to try to take everything, wasn't he? He was going to wipe me out, erase me, just like he had tried to do with Michael. "How much time do I have?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. "You don't have much," John replied grimly. "I've been pushing my sources for information, but everything is moving fast. I don't think you have more than a few days before Luke makes his final move." My mind raced. What could I do in a few days? How could I stop Luke, someone who had already manipulated and lied his way into power? How could I expose everything before it was too late? "I have to go after him," I said, a fire igniting in my chest. "I can't wait anymore. This ends now." "You're going to confront him?" John asked, a note of caution in his voice. "Sam, you need to be careful. Luke is dangerous, and Tracy, she's been feeding him information. They've got the legal system on their side, they've got the company's board, and they'll do whatever it takes to shut you down." "I know," I said, cutting him off. "But I'm not going to back down. I'm taking this all the way. They think they can take control of everything Michael built. But they're wrong. I'm going to take it all back." I hung up the phone, a rush of adrenaline coursing through my veins. There was no turning back now. I had to act fast before it was too late. I needed to confront Luke, to take control of the company, to expose everything for the world to see. But there was one thing I hadn't anticipated: the board. Luke had managed to sway a few key people to his side, and without the board's support, my plan wouldn't work. I needed them on my side, and I wasn't sure I could convince them in time. I grabbed my coat and headed out the door, my mind racing with plans. I needed leverage. The kind of leverage that Luke couldn't ignore. The kind that would force him to give up control, to step aside. And that's when I remembered the secret file Michael had left for me. The one buried in his encrypted records, the one he had set aside for a reason. Michael had left it for me to find, and I hadn't fully opened it yet. Maybe it was the missing piece. I drove to the office, the weight of what I had to do sinking in with every mile. The sun had already set, and the streets were quiet. The tension in my chest was suffocating. I couldn't afford to lose my nerve now. I had to win this fight. When I arrived, I went straight to Michael's office, bypassing the guards with the code Michael had set up for emergencies. I knew where the file was hidden. It was buried deep in the archives, encrypted and locked away from anyone who wasn't supposed to find it. But I was supposed to find it. I accessed the system, my fingers trembling as I typed in the code. The moment I unlocked it, I knew everything was about to change. The file Michael had left behind was more than just a set of documents. It was a blueprint for how to take back control of the empire, how to expose Luke and Tracy's lies, and how to tear their influence apart. As I opened the file, I felt my heart race. The documents inside were precise, meticulous, and damning. Michael had known Luke would eventually turn on him. He had prepared for it. Every step he had taken, every move he had made was documented in this file. This wasn't just about money. It was about betrayal, about revenge, and about a plan Michael had set into motion long before he died. I sat at the desk, poring over the file, my hands shaking as I read through the final pieces of the plan. I couldn't believe it. Michael had anticipated everything. But there was one more thing. A name that stood out, one I hadn't seen before. James Edwards. The man who had been at the center of all the deals, the one who had helped Luke and Tracy manipulate the empire. James Edwards, I muttered to myself. You're the key. It all made sense now. Michael had been gathering information on him for months, and he had planned to use this information to bring everything down once and for all. James Edwards had been the man who'd financed everything. The man who had helped Luke and Tracy build their empire. And now, he was going to be the one who took them down. I stood up, adrenaline coursing through my veins. I knew what I had to do. I had to take control of the company. I had to expose Luke and Tracy. And I had to do it now. I didn't have much time. Don't forget to subscribe because the final battle is about to begin. You won't want to miss what happens next. The truth is about to come out, and nothing will be the same. The weight of everything I had uncovered, everything I had fought for, finally settled on my shoulders. The storm had been building for weeks, but I had never felt the true intensity of it until now. Luke and Tracy had taken everything from me, from Michael, from our family, and they thought they could get away with it. But they didn't know me. They didn't know the rage that had been quietly growing inside of me, fueled by the truth I had uncovered. I stood at the top of the stairs of the Weston family estate, looking out over the sprawling property. The mansion Michael and I had dreamed of, worked for, and built together. But it wasn't mine anymore. Not yet. The company, the money, the house, it had all been taken from me by the people I trusted most. Luke and Tracy were playing the game they always played: deceit, manipulation, greed. They thought I was weak, that I would sit back and let them destroy everything. But they were wrong. I had the final piece of the puzzle. I had the evidence I needed. And now, I was ready to take back everything. My phone buzzed in my pocket, pulling me from my thoughts. I reached into my coat pocket and pulled it out. John's name was flashing on the screen. Sam, John's voice came through, tight and strained. You need to be careful. Luke's made his move. He's not just after the company anymore. He's going for you. My pulse quickened. I knew it. Luke had been too quiet lately. He was preparing for something, and it wasn't going to be good for me. What's happening? I asked, my voice steady despite the rising fear in my chest. He's got the board on his side. He's already taken control of the company's assets. He's about to announce himself as the new CEO. It's over for you, Sam. You've got to act fast, John warned, his tone urgent. I felt the ground beneath me shift, but I didn't let the fear take hold. Not now. I had one chance to make things right, and I wasn't going to let it slip through my fingers. I've already got the documents, John, I said, trying to steady my breathing. I've got everything I need. It's time to end this. You can't do it alone, Sam, John replied, his voice hardening. You need backup. You need to go public with this. Expose them before they can do anything else. I know, I said, my eyes narrowing. But they don't know what I have yet. They won't see me coming. There was a pause on the line, then John's voice softened. You're playing a dangerous game, Sam, but if anyone can do it, it's you. You have the courage to bring them down. Just be careful. I hung up, feeling the weight of his words. He was right. This was dangerous. But at this point, I didn't have a choice. Luke and Tracy had pushed me too far. They had taken too much, and I was going to take it all back. I headed to the office, my heart pounding in my chest. The air felt thick with anticipation, and I could sense that everything was about to come to a head. Luke was in control for now, but not for much longer. I wasn't going to let him win, not after everything he had done to Michael, to me. I arrived at the building, my thoughts a blur as I walked through the front doors. The security guard didn't even look twice at me. I knew the codes. I had the access I needed. This wasn't about being sneaky anymore. This was about taking back what was mine. I made my way to Michael's office, the place that had once felt like home to me. But now, as I entered, it felt empty. There was nothing left. Luke had taken it all. I sat behind Michael's desk, the same place where we'd made plans, where we'd built our future together. But this wasn't our future anymore. It was my future, and I was about to change everything. I opened my laptop and began pulling up the files I had gathered. The offshore accounts, the bank records, the hidden investments. It was all here. Michael had left me the keys to bring Luke and Tracy down, and now it was time to expose them for who they really were. I started drafting the email, the words flowing from my fingers with a sense of purpose. This wasn't just a legal battle anymore. This was a fight for justice, a fight to take back my future. Dear board members, I am writing to inform you of the fraudulent activities conducted by Luke and Tracy Weston, both of whom have been manipulating the company's assets for their own personal gain. As you know, Michael Weston, my late husband, trusted me with the future of this empire. However, since his passing, Luke and Tracy have taken control of the company, hiding vital information and engaging in illicit financial activities. Attached to this email are the documents proving their involvement in money laundering, embezzlement, and multiple violations of corporate law. I urge you to review these files and take immediate action to restore the rightful leadership of the company. This is not just about the company. It's about Michael's legacy, and it's about justice. I will not stand idly by while my husband's hard work is destroyed by the greed of those who should have been trusted to protect it. I look forward to your immediate response and a swift resolution to this matter. Regards, Samantha Weston. I hit send, and for a moment I sat back, breathing heavily. The action had been taken. The first step in taking control had been made. But I knew the real battle was just beginning. The phone rang again, cutting through the silence. It was Luke. I hesitated for a moment before answering, my pulse quickening. Samantha, Luke's voice came through the line, smooth and condescending. I don't know what kind of game you think you're playing, but you're in way over your head. This is bigger than you. You can't just walk in here and take control. The company is mine now. It always has been. I clenched my fists, fighting the urge to scream. No, Luke, I said, my voice steady but fierce. The company is mine. Michael left it to me, and I'm not going to let you destroy everything he built. Luke chuckled, the sound cold and mocking. You don't get it, do you? You're just a widow with a bunch of paperwork. You'll never win this fight. I didn't respond. I didn't need to. Luke was wrong. He didn't know how much I had learned. He didn't know what I had planned. And most of all, he didn't know how far I was willing to go. I had already made my move. Now it was his turn. I walked out of the office with a sense of purpose I had never felt before. The battle was far from over. But now, I had the upper hand. The game had shifted in my favor, and I wasn't going to stop until I had reclaimed everything that was rightfully mine. Luke and Tracy might have thought they had won, but they were wrong. This was just the beginning of my revenge. What do you think? Do you believe I can win this fight against Luke and Tracy? If you were in my shoes, what would you do next? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Don't forget to subscribe. The next chapter of this story is going to be even more intense, and you won't want to miss what happens next. Trust me, this fight is just heating up. What do you think?